Resetting ties after years of animosity. Turkiye and Egypt are close to restoring full diplomatic relations as their foreign ministers meet in Ankara. But what challenges do they face? And what does it all mean for the region? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Tom McRae. After years of hostility, Turkiye and Egypt are rebuilding their ties. Diplomatic relations plunged when Egypt's president overthrew democratically elected leader Mohamed Morsi in 2013. Turkiye since has hosted a number of Muslim Brotherhood figures who fled Egypt. The Egyptian government criticised that, saying Ankara was sheltering what it called terrorists. The two countries have also been at odds on Libya and energy exploration in the east of the Mediterranean. Well, a decade later, attempts to mend their relationship could have widespread implications in the region that could affect political links, presidential elections and economies. Katia Lopez-Horian has more.
After a decade of political animosity, Turkiye and Egypt showed their mending ties. A high-level meeting like this one between their foreign ministers had long been considered near impossible. Yet it took place last month in Cairo between Egypt's Sameh Shoukry and his Turkish counterpart, Mevlut Çavuşoğlu. A shift from hostility to friendliness was first indicated when Shoukry visited areas in Turkiye devastated by major earthquakes. It's all a far cry from 2013. That's when President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi led a coup against Egypt's first democratically elected president, Mohamed Morsi. He was backed by Turkiye, and President Recep Tayyip Erdogan condemned the move. Relations between the two nations took a turn for the worse, especially after Turkiye provided refuge for Egyptian dissidents, many of them leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood. Cairo calls its members terrorists. In the conflict in Libya, Ankara backs the country's internationally recognized government. But Cairo supports warlord Khalifa Haftar and his forces. In 2019, Turkey signed a maritime boundary agreement with Libya, and that further fueled disputes with Egypt over energy exploration in the Mediterranean Sea. Now Egypt needs help to support its economy, and that's something Turkiye could provide. And Erdogan is seeking international support ahead of a presidential election in May. Their attempts to warm ties apparently sweeping years of differences and turning former rivals into allies. Katia Lopez-Horian for Inside Story.
OK, well, let's bring in our guests now. Joining me in Ankara is Yusuf Alabarda, an international security and politics expert and retired colonel. In Istanbul, Helin Sari, Associate Professor of International Relations at Istanbul Medeniyet University. And in Washington, D.C., Khalil Al-Anani, a Senior Fellow at Arab Center, Washington, D.C., a non-profit organisation dedicated to political and economic understanding of the Arab world. A warm welcome to all of you. Thank you very much for being on Inside Story today. Helene, if I can begin with you. Erdogan once called Sisi a tyrant. Sisi has said Turkey has been protecting terrorists. I mean, both are still in charge of their respective countries. So what has changed to get them to this point?
Well, we are once again witnessing another chapter in the Middle East history, let's say, because there's a continuing rapprochement between various countries and Turkey. And this is something quite positive in Turkish foreign policy as well, because we have only a small amount of time left to the general elections and presidential elections. And this kind of warm atmosphere has a power to affect foreign affairs as well as internal affairs. And I guess we should have a broader look to this rapprochement between Turkey and Egypt in the last couple of months. As we remember, in the mid-March, our foreign minister, Çavuşoğlu, went to Cairo to get closer with the Egyptian regime. But at the same time, we now have Egyptian foreign minister in Ankara. And in a broader perspective, I think this is a continuation of the rapprochement between Turkey and Gulf countries, including United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, as well as Turkey's getting closer with Israel, especially in the last couple of months, let's say. This is quite helpful for Turkish side because, especially in terms of the Mediterranean energy security, Turkey needed such a move to get closer with formal rivals or enemies, let's say, because it's almost impossible for Turkey, in terms of traditional Turkish foreign policy as well, to be at odds with so many countries at the same time. For that reason, we see a similar thing that Turkey is getting closer with Israel, with even with Greece in the last couple of months after the terrible earthquake that hit Turkey. So we are witnessing the after effects of the earthquake. So this is earthquake diplomacy, which makes the countries at least to repair their relations after such a terrible incident.
Khalil, why now? Why is this happening now, do you think?
I think for different reasons, Tom. Some of them relate to the domestic affairs in each country. Some of them relate to the regional repositioning and shifts and the global exchange as well. If we took the first level of analysis, which is domestic affairs, both countries are facing severe economic crises over the last couple of years due to different factors. Among them is the COVID-19 ramifications, as well as the Russian war in Ukraine. Egypt has been facing this crisis over the last couple of years. There is devaluation of the Egyptian pound, as we know, unprecedented level of foreign debt, as well as inflation. The same can be applied to Turkey as well. So both countries felt that this is the time, or now is the time, to mend the relation. The second is the regional shifts, as the previous guests mentioned correctly. There are different changes. There is fluidity in the region right now. Different countries trying to shift from the old policies in order to repair the relations. We saw this particularly in Turkey. Turkey is trying to adopt once again what's called zero problems foreign policy, meaning trying to repair and mend the relations with other countries, particularly Saudi Arabia, UAE, Syria, Israel, and now Egypt. As well as if we look at the global exchanges right now, this competition between the US and China, as well as the Russian war in Ukraine, all these circumstances pushed both countries to rethink and to reposition themselves in order to get benefit from what's going on. So I think both realized that they should move a little bit from the past and try to open a new chapter in their bilateral relations. What is very interesting, Tom, here, if we look at the bilateral economic relations between both countries, it wasn't impacted by the political rupture. If we look at for example, the trade volume increased from $7 billion in 2007. Now it's $11 billion in terms of trade volume and economic exchange between Egypt and Turkey, which is very significant when it comes to the economic situation in both countries.
So it's the perfect storm, bringing them back together at this point in time. Yusuf, I mean, there are many issues that have divided the two countries over the last decade or so. I mean, what are the terms or preconditions of this reconciliation, or is everything up for discussion at this point in time, do you think?
Everything probably will be going to be on the table because, as the previous guest mentioned, that the changing conditions, especially in the world and in the area, enforce these two countries to discuss on the table. But I do believe that they will put aside the problems that they cannot resolve, and they will go further for the issues that they can move to a win-win position. From my point of perspective, they will not discuss the issue about the Muslim Brotherhood because Turkey already started to limit their media coverage inside Turkey, but probably no one can persuade Turkey to accept the Muslim Brotherhood, for example, as a terrorist organization. For that reason, everything will be on the table, but at the very end, they will put aside the problems that they cannot resolve, and they will move forward with the issues that they can go forward as a win-win situation.
Khalil, you pretty much wrote the book on the Muslim Brotherhood, almost literally. I mean, what sort of fallout will there be for them in this scenario, do you think?
I think the Brotherhood is already under pressure from what's happening between Turkey and between Egypt. First of all, we should note that the Brotherhood has been in Turkey for the last decade. Turkey provided them with a safe haven. Many leaders and members, when they fled the country in 2013, they found a safe haven in Turkey. They got many chances in order to change the situation in Egypt. They failed miserably. They also are facing deep internal divisions, which impacted their ability to bring about a change in Egypt. So they got their chances. Now, Turkey is looking at the issue as a liability and burden on their foreign policy. That's why they took some measures over the last couple of years in order to ease tensions, not only with Egypt, but also with other regional forces who designated the Brotherhood as a terrorist organization, including Saudi Arabia and UAE. So the impact of this rapprochement between Turkey and Egypt is already significant. Some of their leaders left the country. Some of them remain silent. And also Turkey has shut down one of the most important TV satellite channels, Helin. It has been shut down the last couple of years. So Turkey already took measures in order to cool down tensions with Egypt. And I think the impact on the Brotherhood will be significant. However, when it comes to extraditing some of those who are allegedly participating in violence, according to the Egyptian government, I think this is not going to happen. Until now, Turkey didn't do this before, so I doubt that Turkey will accept the Egyptian demand or questions about this issue, which might be an issue for divisions in the future. If Egypt asked and pressured Turkey in order to extradite some of those who are involved in violence, according to the Egyptian government, Turkey might not allow this to happen. So this might impact the relations in the future.
Yeah. Helin, has there been any reaction from the Muslim Brotherhood, to the foreign ministers meeting for the second time? And is there a fear there that some may be extradited back to Egypt?
There is such a possibility, but we should underline something. I don't think that the philosophy, at least the background that the Turkish government and the AKP ideology is feeling about Muslim Brotherhood has changed. So it's there. It's still a strong sympathy for them. But at the same time, there are the rules, there are the conditions of realpolitik that Turkey has to follow as well. For that reason, as my colleague also underlined, Turkey is putting a kind of separation between itself officially and the Muslim Brotherhood as an organization. At the same time, I do agree that Turkey will not be declaring Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. In my case, I think this will never happen, at least as far as I can see at the moment. But for sure, there should be some kind of concrete steps from the Turkish side to persuade the Egyptian side regarding Turkey's limitations against the Muslim Brotherhood. I think the biggest problem or the potential problem is still lying there, which is Libya. So it's not Muslim Brotherhood at this time, it's Libya. Libya is there, it's very serious. So many actors globally and regionally are included in this problem. Turkey is included there, especially in terms of military aspects. For that reason, I think the biggest problem between Turkey and Egypt is Libya, not Muslim Brotherhood at the moment. And we have to speak about Libya more regarding the future of the relations, because Turkish steps regarding Libya will be closely affecting Turkey's future relations with Egypt.
Well, let's do exactly that. I mean, there's many issues when it comes to Libya. Obviously, the exclusive economic zone, the disputed maritime borders, military interference. Yusuf, I mean, how are they going to come to any sort of agreement on any of those issues? And do you think that they can?
Yeah, Libya is, as the previous guest also mentioned, is one of the most important issues that should come to an alignment for both countries. You know that the intervention of the Turkish intervention inside Libya, especially in Tripoli, brought a comparatively peace to the region, because there is a stalemate position now inside Libya. So if there is an agreement in order to make an alignment for the Libyan issue, probably that will be a win-win situation for both sides. For that reason, if the Egyptian side understands that it is also a win-win position for the Egypt government and for all its economical problems, I do believe that there will be a agreement over the Libyan issue. From the point of perspective of the exclusive economical zone and the continental shelf issues, I should say that there is no overlapping area in between Egypt and Turkey. The issue is again the Libyan continental shelf and exclusive economical zone. Probably that Turkey's gas exploration in the Libyan continental shelf and the exclusive economical zone will be on the undisputable parts, but not the overlapping areas.
Khalil, what do you think of the sticking points going to be for Egypt when it comes to Libya? Is there a red line that you don't think Egypt will want to cross?
I think so. Egypt sees Libya as part of its national security, and we saw this very clearly when Turkey's forces went to Libya based on an agreement with the GNA, the General National Accord government under Fayez al-Sarraj, and almost their forces came close to Sirte. So Sisi came out in a very tough speech, and he drew the red line that they will not accept any further advancements of either the Turkish forces or the GNA forces into Sirte. Sirte is a very critical area for Egypt's national security. So yes, there is some issues, but I also think that both countries realize that it can be a win-win situation, as the previous guest mentioned, if they come to an agreement. And I think the issue is not only between Egypt and Turkey, it's also between the opposing parties within Libya. Until now, there are many divisions. The elections were supposed to take place on December 2021. It was postponed indefinitely. Now we are witnessing some openness between both parties, particularly in the light of the recent initiative by Abdallah Bathili, the UN envoy to Libya. And there are some hopes that elections will take place by the end of this year. But both parties, either in eastern Libya, led by Khalifa Haftar, the so-called Libyan National Army, the LNA, and also the government Tripoli, they should come into terms in order to move forward in putting elections laws and procedures. If this happens, I think both countries, like Egypt and Turkey, they will come to an agreement because they know that if the situation in Libya is settled down, they will benefit a lot economically and strategically as well.
Helin, I want to circle back to something that you said earlier. Erdogan faces a presidential election in a few weeks' time. I mean, how important is this for him, and what is the support like there in Turkey for forging a closer relationship with Egypt at this point in time?
Well, due to our age, we could have the chance to witness many different periods of Turkish foreign policy in the past. For that reason, we witnessed the positive impact of zero problem with the neighbors policy in the past. For that reason, Turkey knows that actually there are so many advantages if it can underline the win-win strategy with its neighbors, including Egypt as a regional partner. It's very easy to disrupt the relations between Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and so on. But it's also not so hard to create a kind of amity, to create a positive atmosphere in which especially all of the countries will gain, especially in terms of economic benefits. And like my colleague also underlined, Turkish-Egyptian economic relations have never fallen down. And in the last couple of years, it always went up and up. And this is also very interesting because we see a similar pattern with the Turkish-Israeli relations as well, because Turkey has many political problems with Israel. It had so many severe times with Israel in the past, but the economic relations never went down. So Turkey needs this potential, and it's quite aware that it's very important for Turkey to have foreign investment, to have better economic benefits from the region. For that reason, I guess many countries, including Saudi Arabia, Turkey, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Israel, even Greece, they know that they have so many stuff to gain when they have better relations. But at the same time, there are some crisis times, and sometimes purposely, all these countries are trying to show off in terms of military aspects. They are trying to show off their military power. And Turkey has been doing that since the start of the Syrian civil war. And Turkey is doing that with its İHAs and SİHAs, very significant military equipments, which Turkey is also trying to sell to Libya as well. And they were used in Libyan civil war in the past. And Turkey is there in Libya militarily. But not only Turkey or Egypt are there, as Russia is there, which is very important. And Russia is still there and still quite determined to continue its position there by improving its relations with China. And we also see that there's a kind of activity on the United States position as well in Libya, because after the Ukrainian war, there's a huge energy insecurity problem regarding Europe. For that reason, the United States, is very much interested in Libya's energy, Libya's oil. And we've seen in the last couple of weeks that there was an agreement between a Libyan company and an American company about construction of a refinery, oil refinery in Libya.
Okay.
And Libya is not capable of this technical stuff to dig out and to sell its energy to the outside world. So they need great powers. And we see a huge rivalry in the Middle East between the United States and rising China and Russia in terms of Africa, in terms of the Middle East, I should point.
Yeah. Yusuf, I want to stay zoomed out for a moment and talk about the Eastern Mediterranean and how that would be impacted, the likes of Greece and Cyprus, how those countries would be impacted by closer ties between Turkiye and Egypt.
The Turkish exclusive economical zone and the continental shelf has lots of problems with the Cyprus and with the Greece, as you have mentioned. But as I said in my previous comments, that there is no overlapping area in between Turkey and the Egypt for exclusive economical zones and for the continental shelf. And so far we have seen and we have realized that although huge relations, immense relations in between Egypt and Greece, Egypt has always been respectful to the Turkish economical zones and also to the self-continental zones which Turkey has already declared clearly. For that reason, the normalization of relations in between Turkey and Egypt will have no effect to the relations of Egypt and Greece and Turkey and Egypt. For that reason, those two problems are apart from each other. But I should also add that the normalization of relations between Turkey and Egypt probably won't have any effect to the elections inside Turkey, because the agenda inside Turkey is completely different inside Turkey. But I should also add one note to Helin, that the Turkish existence inside in Libya is very important from the security of the southern flank, security of Europe. You know that the Russian forces inside Libya was together with the warlord Khalifa Haftar, and if they were successful, you should understand that the European southern flank, especially the Italy, won't be in the threat of the Russian threat, which we know from the Ukraine. And another issue about that problem is that without the Turkish existence inside Libya, there would be a huge flow of refugees because of the clashes from Libya to the Europe. Turkey also prevented that flow of refugees from Libya to the Europe. We should never forget that two issues.
Yes, of course.
But I guess we should also underline that this created the tension between Turkey and Egypt as well, because Egypt sees Libya as a national security problem. And for Turkey, Libya is quite significant in terms of many aspects, but this is not as serious. In the long run, it's serious, but it's not the same thing that Egypt sees Libya as a national security problem, as a neighbor. You know, it's very significant for Egypt.
Yeah.
So I do agree that Turkey's position in Libya was somehow beneficial for preventing the crisis in Europe, in Southern Europe especially. But I also should underline that this created some other problems regarding the regional partners like Egypt.
Okay. Khalil, we spoke about this a little bit earlier, but it seems like, you know, as many countries are being divided by the war in Ukraine and many other issues at this point in time, there's just as many that are wanting to become friends again. I mean, we've got Saudi Arabia and Iran, Syria and Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Bahrain, now Turkiye and Egypt. Why do you think there is a coming together of these nations at this point in time, all at once?
I think this is because of what's happening around the world now. We're witnessing maybe one of the hallmarks that happened over the last century. This is a new changes that's happening right now. If you look at the Russian war in Ukraine, this is the first long-term war since the Second World War. We're talking about now more than 14 months of devastating war that's happening now at the heart of Europe. This has huge implications for the international system and for global politics, and we see the ramifications of this already happening right now all over the place. We also see the rising, not only competition, but also the conflict between the US and China, and we see the Chinese attempts in order to have not only economic influence, but also political influence in the region. We saw a very important development over the last months when China brokered for the first time a peace or resumption of relations between Iran and Saudi Arabia. This is something significant and tells us a lot about what's happening in the region and also on the global level. So I think all these countries that you mentioned, Tom, came to a conclusion that they need to reposition themselves. They need to rethink the relationships, particularly in the light of what's happening. So we saw now rapprochement and resumption of relations between Iran and Saudi Arabia. The same is happening between Saudi Arabia and Syria. Same is happening between Israel and other countries. So we see significant changes right now. So now we cannot speak of long-term foes or long-term friends. It's all contingent upon what's happening, either regionally or internationally. I just would like to add something about the East Mediterranean issue. I
just
think
very quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. I think this would be one of the most dividing issues between Turkey and Egypt for two reasons. One of them, Egypt established what's called the East Mediterranean Gas Forum in 2019. It excluded Turkey from that forum, which includes other countries such as Jordan, Palestine, Israel, Italy, France, Greece, and Cyprus. And we know very well that Cyprus and Greece are the main adversaries of Turkey, the main foes of Turkey, and they have good relations with Egypt. So would Egypt sacrifice its relations with these two countries in order to appease, satisfy Turkey, or not something else? The second issue is that until now, Egypt and Turkey did not delimit or demarcate their maritime borders. And this is an issue that we need to look at when it comes to the future relation between both countries.
Okay. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Thank you very much. It's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out. Thank you very much to our three guests today, Yusuf Alabarda, Helin, Sari, Ertem and Khalil Al-Anani. Thank you very much for being on Inside Story. And thank you too for watching. You can see the program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Tom McRae, and the whole team here, bye for now.